Good evening, members. This meeting is now open and being live streamed on YouTube. The first item of business this evening is the election of chairman for the new municipal year. May I please receive nominations, including a proposer and seconder? And a seconder. Thank you. And are there any other nominations? No. Okay. So we'll move to the vote. All those in favour of? Yes, of course.
As it's a proposal, I'd like to speak on it. I think Councillor Pierpoint is wholly unsuited for the role of chairman. In the past year, he's been making sexist remarks more towards me, some of which are recorded on YouTube and can be found. He's referred to me as a beast. I have written to him extensively asking for an apology, and it hasn't been forthcoming. I also know he failed in his audit and governance role as chairman by failing to fill in his declaration of interest properly, and I believe that was referred to Lincolnshire Police. So I think he's wholly unsuited for the role of chairman, and I will not be able to support that at all.
Councillor Pierpoint.
Councillor Dorian, if I remember rightly, July time last year, you was very unsuitable to everybody because you was very nasty to people. You ripped them to bits. This really damaged people's character. You can't talk about people having said things about you. The way you treat people, you get the same back, and you don't like it. As far as I'm concerned, you're not suitable to be a councillor, never mind sitting in this meeting. So please don't make accusations like that about me. I'm very suitable. I did not.
Is it all recorded and can be viewed on YouTube? I've never been sexist towards anyone, misogynist or racist towards anyone,
Sorry,
or homophobic. So
members.
yeah.
So those exchanges
Dreadful
have been noted. We're going to move to the vote. So all those in favour of Councillor Pierpoint being chair of the committee? All those against? Any abstentions? No. Your vote will be recorded. Councillor Pierpoint, would you like to come up to the table?
Well, first of all, let me just say thank you very much to all the committee that supported me, and I'm going to support you as best I can as the chairman of this committee. As you know, I was the chairman a year ago, and one of the things I achieved very successfully was to save the committee £30,000 in costs. My job as the chairman will be to deliver BTAC and to drive it forward and progress it as best I can with your support and your help, so that we are ready for LGR when we become a town council. Thank you very much for your support, and we'll move on. I'd like to also start by thanking Councillor Marson for her work as the chair of committee for the previous year. She did a tremendous job. It's a difficult job to do, and we thank you for what you've done, and thank you very much for taking the chair for that year. I'd like to do an election of the vice chair. I'd like to nominate Councillor Marson as the vice chair of this committee. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Doherty. All those in favour? Any against? No abstentions? One abstention. Before we move to the main... Oh, sorry, Patsy. Sorry, Councillor Patsy Marson. Can you come and join me? Right, before we move to the main meeting, I'd like to run through a few housekeeping details. I'd like to remind everyone in attendance this evening that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube. Please note this meeting will be transcribed to assist with the preparation of minutes. By remaining in the room, you'll be giving your consent to the transcription. When addressing this meeting, please ensure you do so through the microphone system at all times. Speak clearly and directly so everyone in the room, remote participants and recordings can hear you. Mobile phones should be turned off or switched off to silent. Have we got any members of the public in attendance? Yes, we have. So for your benefit, the restroom facilities are available for ladies in this floor and halfway down the main stairwell for gentlemen. In the event of a fire alarm sounding, officers will escort everyone out of the building to the nearest fire safety point in the car park. Members of the public are free to leave the meeting at any time. Please raise your hand if you wish to leave, and please be patient whilst a member of security comes to collect you. Finally, please be advised that abuse or intimidation of any kind will not be tolerated. Any disturbance will result in the meeting being adjourned. Anyone who is deemed to breach these requirements will be warned and asked to refrain. If behaviour persists, they will be required to leave the meeting. One more thing I'd like to mention to all of the committee: if anybody wants to leave the meeting before the meeting's finished, I think it's a courtesy if they ask the chairman if they don't mind leaving the meeting, and that person will be recorded, and the time that they leave the meeting will be recorded as well. I think that's just good manners and courtesy. Would you agree with me on that? Thank you. Now we'll continue with part one of the agenda, the preliminaries. Apologies for absence.
Apologies have been received from councillors Emma Cresswell, Anton Danny and Paul Gleeson.
Are there any declarations of interest? Particularly with respect to the items on this agenda? No? Right, minutes. Do I have permission to sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of March? Thank you. Update on action from the minutes of the last meeting. Could I ask Phil, the Service Director, Phil Perry, Leisure and Services, to provide an update? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, members. There are a number of items to report tonight, the first being highways. Members are aware that Councillor David East, portfolio holder for highways at Lincolnshire County Council, was unable to attend the Overview and Scrutiny Committee on the 4th of June 2026. However, a written response was circulated on the questions he was given. Additionally, details have been provided on the correct reporting protocol, which is for all matters relating to highways or transport. Requests for information should be directed in the first instance through the locally elected county councillors. This should then be progressed in collaboration with the relevant local highways manager to ensure consistency, accuracy and proper oversight. This approach helps ensure that inquiries are handled efficiently, reflect local knowledge and follow the established governance process. Thank you. The second item is the green flag. On Friday, the 8th of May, Boston Borough Council had a Green Flag Award judge at Central Park as part of the annual assessment process. The visit was led by the Group Manager, Street Scene, Environment and Operational Services, and the Leisure Services and Contracts Manager, supported by our Operations Manager and Communications Lead. Alison Fairman from Boston Balloon was also present. Proceedings began with an introductory discussion during which the judge asked a number of questions about the park's management, current position and future aspirations. This provided an opportunity to outline both strengths and areas where continued improvement is being pursued. A guided tour of the park followed, highlighting key features of the site and the work currently underway to address known challenges. The discussion throughout was open and reflected the ongoing nature of improvements across the park. The judge remained engaged during the visit, asking questions to better understand the park and its operation. He also took part in some informal activity, including sowing wildflower seeds in a newly prepared area and briefly tried out some of the play equipment. At the conclusion of the visit, the judge indicated that he had found the visit informative and acknowledged the standard of the park. However, no firm indication was given regarding the overall outcome. He confirmed that a full report would be submitted to the Green Flag Award Scheme by the end of June. which will include any recommendations and required actions. He reiterated that the assessment is based on achieving a clean, safe and well-managed park. The outcome of the assessment is therefore expected later this month. Third item is Central Park again. Following the decision not to renew the security and gate locking service at Central Park, the gates have been unlocked since the 31st of August 2025. Since then, Democratic Services have been liaising with the Community Safety Team, CCTV team and Environmental Health team to monitor the situation with any reports of criminality at Central Park. Between the 1st of September and the last committee meeting in March, there were 13 reports of alleged criminal behaviour, ranging from antisocial behaviour to youth scaling the toilet block roof, and unconfirmed reports of a man with a knife. None of those reports were during the period when the gates were previously locked. Since the last meeting of the committee in March, there has been one allegation to the council's team of a firearm being seen. The area was patrolled by police and CCTV observed, and nothing substantive was confirmed. This allegation was during a time when the park would have been previously locked. We do not have updated information from police records, but Inspector Cotton has indicated that Lincolnshire Police are undertaking a piece of work in Boston around serious violent crime. Central Park has been flagged as a hotspot area to concentrate on. They're awaiting the outcome of a piece of analytical work to see what trends have emerged, and this will include data for the Central Park area. This information will be provided to the committee at its next meeting, as well as information from the council's teams. Finally, we have CGR. Councillor Gilbert, Chairman of the Community Governance Review Working Group, would like to address the committee with an update regarding CGR. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, just a verbal update for everybody. We've concluded the consultation, which indicated that the vast majority of respondents are supportive of the move towards creating a town council for the town centre or BTAC area of Boston. Also, we've interpreted the results of the Wibberton question, shall we call it that, and that does appear that the general feeling is that the area of Wibberton, which is unparished, should move back into the BTAC area and not go into Wibberton parish. That part of Councillor Austin's ward will be returned to BTAC. We're now moving towards a consideration of the assets as we move forward to identify the outcomes of the LGR proposals by government, in which we would in a sense be able to then progress further with a report to full council to consider the next stage in the process of creating the town council in readiness for elections in May next year. So it's all good and everything's progressing on a good timescale. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gilbert. And any questions at all? Councillor Austin. Press the middle button.
Oh, thanks. Councillor Gilbert, I would like you to be a little bit more explicit over what they call the unparished part of Wibberton, because I think I'm probably in opposition of thoughts to my husband, and you know, it's.
If I can just anticipate your question, Councillor Austin, I think what you would like to see happen as arisen from the consultation. So the area, the sort of, if you like, the disputed area, if you like, the area that could have gone into the Wibberton parish area or could come back into the BTAC area. Yeah. The proposal is from the consultation, it comes back into BTAC, and that area, those two areas do not go into Wibberton parish. Yeah.
May I just follow up my question? Thank you. What I'm specifically interested in is what basically is the Sir Isaac Newton estate, which is immediately alongside St Thomas's school, as I don't consider that Wibberton, and so my brain wasn't working quite fast enough, sorry. So is that still not going to be Wibberton is what I want to be sure of.
When LGR happens and Boston Borough Council and its wards disappear,
Yeah,
that area, which is currently part of Wibberton Ward,
yes,
will return to BTAC.
but it isn't Wibberton now. Thank you. Yes, yeah, certainly not Wibberton.
Are there any other questions for Councillor Gilbert or for Phil? I'd just like to add one comment where Phil read out the report regarding the county councillor who should have been here and didn't turn up. And we've had 3 attempts to get the county council from the highways, the portfolio holder here, and 3 attempts they couldn't make it or didn't turn up. And now they've given us that explanation. At the overview and scrutiny meeting the other day, I lodged a complaint that I wasn't happy, and I think other members of the committee on that committee also agreed. We were not happy that the county council wouldn't represent themselves in person because they should be here so we can ask questions and we can talk to them face to face. It's all right putting things on paper, but then you get more questions off the back of the answers. And having live people here doing the conversations and doing the discussions and answering the questions is what we wanted. And I think those of you who are on that committee remember we discussed that, and I gave the chairman the task of writing to them, or somebody from that committee writing to the county council saying that we hear what they say about their protocol, but actually we want somebody to come down and talk to us face to face. So we need to wait and see what happens with that outcome.
Until I chose to retire about 3 years ago now, or whatever it was, I would have treated, I mean, it's slightly hypothetical because I would be at BTAC anyway, but I always went to the parish councils in the division that I was represented, which was Boston South. And sometimes you weren't asked to say anything, but you sat there and were available if required. And I think that should be the courtesy that some of these newer councillors perhaps don't, newer county councillors perhaps don't know about. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think the frustration is that people expect to be questioned and then they get some answers, and then off the back of the answers could be more questions. But clearly, as nobody's turned up for 3 meetings, and then we just get a written one, that's not good enough in my eyes. And I think some of the other committee members on that night felt the same. Anyway, let's see what happens. We left it with the chairman to write to the county council and go from there. Can I ask Councillor Dorian, do you want to speak?
Yes, I do, on this particular point. The irony wasn't lost on me regarding your comments at the overview and scrutiny, because they were in direct contradiction with the comments I'd made requesting that our portfolio holders are here to answer questions from this council, from backbenchers specifically. And you were emphatic, in fact, that they didn't have to be here at all. Now, what's sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. If you want to be indignant about county councils coming, and I agree with you on that, then I support that 100%. But don't cover up for your pals by their continued absences and their continued failure to answer political questions on very important matters.
We've discussed this before several times because the question you keep bringing up is that the portfolio holders do not have to be here if they don't wish to. I've checked this out with the leader and he's checked it out with the CEO, and the officers are here, and that's what matters. If you want to go to the, if you want to go
they
to
don't
the
have to be
cabinet
here,
meeting,
just like the county councils don't have to be here, but it's good governance.
well, the county councils need to be here because their councillors, their officers aren't here.
They don't have to be here, just like portfolio holders don't
Well, I'm
have
not
to
going to
be here,
argue
but
with
it's
you.
poor
It's waste-
governance.
I'm
You
not
just
argue
don't
with you.
see it, do
I'm not argue
you?
with you. Thank you very much. Councillor Izard.
Just to point out that, you know, we were elected in May 23, and I've sat at various committees at all the times, and not always a cabinet member could be at that meeting. They have their own lives, they have their own work, and as Councillor Dorian knows, some are postmen, some are working shifts and various other reasons. There's lots of reasons why a portfolio holder may not be able to attend a meeting, just like sometimes councillors cannot attend a meeting either.
Noted, we're going to move on from that now because we've discussed it enough times, and as far as I'm concerned, it's dead and buried. Let's move on.
But it's not dead and just
No,
because you
don't
want
talk-
it dead and
don't-
buried,
don't
it's not
speak.
dead and buried for
It's don't
everybody.
speak.
No.
No.
And you've withdrawn the ability to ask questions at full council, stating that portfolio holders would be in these meetings to answer questions. And now you're covering up for
Go
them
to the
all.
cabinet meeting and do your questions there. We'll move on. Are there any questions from the members of the public?
There are none for this meeting.
Would you like to speak, sir? You don't want to speak. Okay, thank you very much. So no members of the public are going to speak, so we'll move on to the agenda. We're going to agenda item number 2. It's the Boston Town Neighbourhood Board. The first item of this business is an update from Claire Foster, the interim chair of the Boston Neighbourhood Board. This arises following a request from the committee to hear about the board's plans. Claire will now provide us with an update of the current focus and the priorities for the board. Claire, over to you. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the opportunity to provide this update on the Boston Pride in Place programme to colleagues this evening. As you will be aware, the Neighbourhood Board submitted plans for our Pride in Place programme, which presented a 10-year vision to the to MHCLG, the Ministry for Houses, Local Government and Communities. And they were exceptionally pleased with the vision that we presented to them as a board. That 10-year vision was created as a result of significant consultation with our communities, and we got from that a clear understanding of Boston's strengths, its challenges, and of course its opportunities. And as we move forward, our focus is increasingly on implementation alongside the strategy that we then presented. So we had more than 1,000 residents and stakeholders who contributed to that consultation. And from that, we then moved to a period of working through opportunities for bespoke workshops led by an external consultant, giving the people of Boston the opportunity to come and discuss in more detail their ideas for the themes that we were presenting. We also undertook consultation with the young people of the town, who then provided their views on what Boston should look like over the next 10 years. Following that, we asked for expressions of interests rather than full plans from any stakeholders, any people who felt they had ideas for the Pride in Place programme. That resulted in a significant number of projects being put forward, 63 in fact in total, which was very, very pleasing to the board. And we've had a range of projects that came in from that submission. So overwhelming was the number of projects, some of them in detail, some of them, as I said, more of expressions of interests, that we took the view that there needed to be a subgroup that looked at each and every one of those projects in detail. We've now had 3 meetings of the subgroup of the Neighbourhood Board to look at each and every one of those projects. And what we found is that there are significant overlap in some areas, and there are thematic areas that are emerging. So we took, as I said, a considerable amount of time to review them. But what we did see was that the evidence of priorities closely matching the data and the information that we've received from those consultations. And I think that gives us confidence that the programme will reflect what local people actually want to see happen. And unsurprisingly, the town centre was a major priority. And we know that the town centre faces challenges around footfall, vacant units, and perception of safety, importantly. And the focus of the Pride in Place programme is to provide a more vibrant and attractive and distinctive destination, building on the assets that Boston already has. And that includes public realm improvements, supporting independent businesses, improving connectivity, and importantly, making the use of the heritage assets. So we've seen just turning to those heritage assets, that heritage and culture will be the key drivers of our regeneration, because Boston has a remarkable story to tell and a unique relationship with the USA. And building momentum towards Boston 400 in 2030 is a huge priority, because this is an important chance that Boston has to lift itself and to demonstrate to the rest of the world, not just England, the kind of town that we aspire to be. And our ambition is to use culture, heritage and events to drive civic pride, visitor numbers and economic growth. And it will have links to the Cultural Compact for Boston that was launched last week. The Pride in Place programme is about people as much as place. And alongside physical regeneration, we're looking to invest in community capacity, skills, well-being, and key to everything, this came very strongly from board members, was social cohesion. And we recognise as a board that lasting change comes from empowered communities and not simply new buildings or infrastructure. This has to be from the ground up and has to represent what people want to see. Interestingly, when I went to a meeting of other town board chairs, the government was keen to see interventions that could be as small as excuse me, Chair, but a dog poo bin on the corner of a street, if that was what was necessary and that was what the residents of that particular area wanted. And so that, I think, really resonates and demonstrates the importance of this programme to everyone in Boston. But I think the priority over the next 2 years is to demonstrate visible progress. So the subgroup have looked at several of the projects that could deliver quick wins, that the local community can see that the Pride in Place programme has teeth and that we're doing something active, at the same time as recognising that some of the programmes will need to have some joint thinking. So where, for example, we were seeing projects that were on the same theme, how organisations could work together. For example, in park areas, as we've heard from Bill Perry tonight, the park, particularly Central Park, is a really important asset to the town. How do we animate the park? How do we make it accessible? And most importantly, feel safe. But success will also ultimately be measured not only by investment, but whether people feel positive. And I think that resonates very much with the board's thinking, that we want to see impact and not just getting money out of the door. We've used various mechanisms to judge the projects, and they've gone through a strong filtering process. We are at the stage now as a subgroup that will be presenting those findings to the full board on the 22nd of June and gaining permission from them to take our recommendations forward. So just in finishing, I think the board's role is to help to turn ambition into the action that everybody wants to see. There is a clear vision already stated and strong community backing for this once in a generation opportunity through the Pride in Place programme. And our focus now is on delivering tangible improvements that build confidence in Boston's future and create, most importantly for all of us, that lasting legacy for residents, businesses and of course visitors alike. And that is the determination of the Neighbourhood Board. I'm very happy if anybody would like to ask any questions.
Thanks, Claire. That's very kind of you. We'll open the meeting for anybody got any questions to ask Claire for a report. Councillor Isdall.
Just to, you mentioned you had consultation with young people. How many responded to that consultation? Do you know a rough figure?
The consultation has been done in several ways. So there have been consultations and working with young people as I have over the last 30 years, the last thing that they will respond to is a survey. It's not the way to engage young people. And so what's happened is that our consultants have gone into the schools and the local college and found innovative ways of asking young people what their thoughts are. There's been some practical work, getting young people to articulate their vision for the particular areas in Boston through visual means, rather than having to kind of necessarily sort of speak what they feel is important. So that work will continue. It's not something that ends just so that we can start to write up projects. I'm very keen. I'm about to end my term as the interim chair, but I'm very keen, and I know that that vision will continue to maintain that consultation with young people. So I'm not able to give you a number, because a number is not really what we're talking about. It's knowing that young people from all different settings have been asked that question and will continue to be asked those questions.
And you'll say the subgroup should be meeting on the 22nd of June to finalise the projects. Is that correct?
No, that's not quite right. So the subgroup has met 3 times.
Yes.
And we've had 3 separate meetings. Then the subgroup will present a report to the main board on the 22nd of June, recommending our findings and a proposal for the way forward.
You can't give any further details here.
I don't think it's appropriate before the board has seen the recommendations from the subgroup at this time to do so.
Okay. One more question then. With you introducing or say talking to young people, can we expect anything on the 22nd of June to involve the young people of Boston, because it's their town, it's their future?
As I said earlier, those quick wins need to be visible, and without talking about anything in detail, there are projects within those recommendations as quick wins that are very much focused on young people, yes.
Councillor Gilbert.
I sit on behalf of this council. I sit on the board, and I would just like to say something very positive, and that is that the whole philosophy behind the board is to create partnerships. A number of, as has already been pointed out, a number of projects are fairly similar, and rather than losing the impetus of those different groups and those different proposals, we're trying to create partnerships and create collaboration between some of those people putting forward some of those plans, with a view to maximising the legacy we're likely to get from the 20 million pounds over the 10 years. So it's a good philosophy that we have underpinning the work that we're doing, and I applaud the work that has been done by Claire to create that atmosphere amongst the members of the board.
Maria, over to you.
If I may, through you, Chair, just to add to Claire's question back to Councillor Izard, the projects that are then recommended by board will come forward for council sign off as part of our section 151 responsibility. So we can bring updates back through, although it's not an official approval channel, we can bring that through as well.
Because I was going to say that I'd be keen to have regular updates and see the progress that you're making, and how far we've got and what's going to happen, and that, because I think this committee would be very keen, being the town, be keen to know what's happening and the progress that you're making ongoing.
If I may just add, Chair, when I talked about the 3 meetings of the subgroup, I think that in itself demonstrates the commitment that board members in their own time are making to the review and the analysis of the projects. As I said, there are 63 of them, and they required an awful lot of reading and consideration by each of those members. And I think that says everything about the board's, as I said, the commitment to getting this right. We're not wanting to rush and try and get money out of the door, which is always a temptation. By taking this approach, some quick wins that will impact particularly young people, we feel that's the best way forward, so that we can, as Councillor Gilbert talked about, create long-lasting partnerships that will create opportunities that go into the future for Boston, rather than just spending the money for spending's sake.
Councillor Noble.
Thank you. Just adding on something that Councillor Izard asked. Yes, how many local schools did you actually go into and consult? I presume they were secondary schools.
They were secondary schools and the local college. I think Maria has a bit more detail on those.
Yeah, if you just didn't how many schools you did visit,
Yeah.
it'd be just interesting to know. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Through Chair, I'm more than happy to provide the full copy of the consultation and stakeholder pack. It went into government in November, and I think it a few months ago now. So really happy to circulate that with minutes if that would be helpful. Okay, no problem.
Are there any more questions for Claire? No? So, Claire, thank you very much for attending today and providing the committee with the updates, which I'm sure members will agree with me, been very helpful and very informative, and we are looking forward to progresses, you know, from time to time. So when do you come out of the chair, the interim role? Are you say you're coming out of that? Or is that confidential, or is that not supposed to be? I should not ask questions like that.
No, it's fine to ask. So I initially said that I would act up as interim chair till just after Christmas. It was very important for the government department to see some continuity rather. So it's likely to hand over in the next month or so.
Well, let me just thank you on behalf of everybody here for what you've done. You did a super job. Keep up the good work, and thank you very much, and good luck to your new venture or your new opportunity that you're doing. Thank you.
It's been my pleasure.
Thank you. Right, the next item. We now go to item 2, it's Pride in Place Impact Fund. This is page 7 to 16. I'd like to ask the Service Director for Culture and Regeneration, Marie Cotton, to present the report, please. Thank you, Marie. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Members will be aware that Boston Borough Council recently received £1.5 million worth of Pride in Place impact funding. It's worth noting this is not the Pride in Place funding that Claire Foster has been talked about. It's unfortunately or fortunately has the same name, but this is separate funding. It's investment across the whole of Boston Borough, and its aim is to support practical, visible improvements that strengthen community pride, wellbeing and local identity. So the paper that's in your pack sets out a practical investment framework built around the fund's broad objectives, which were dictated by the government guidance around improving community spaces, enhancing public spaces and supporting high street and town centre revitalisation. On the 5th of May, Cabinet approved how this fund will be allocated. 750,000 is allocated to Pride in Place impact grants, and I'm very pleased to see that the application process for that went live earlier this week, and I would encourage anybody listening to consider a grant proposal into that pot. There is also a £700,000 allocated for high streets and town centre revitalisation, with a little continuity to support the programme delivery within that element as well. So in terms of delivery, the funding must be committed by the end of March 2027. So the programme that is set out in the report is designed to move at pace, but it has a clear governance framework. It's capital funding, it sits within our approved capital programme, and it'll be managed within the Council's normal insurance and financial governance arrangements. So for this committee, the key point is it's not simply a funding report to note this evening, but it's an opportunity to shape how the town centre improvements can be strengthened. And that's really through local alignment, local insight, and where committee feel appropriate, match funding. Members will see from the report that there's potential investment in public realm, in frontage improvements, accessibility, wayfinding, street furniture, and lots of complementary works that could make key parts of our town centre of Boston much more attractive, welcoming, and economically active. So this evening, the ask of the committee is, first of all, to note those proposed priorities and the delivery approach of this fund. Second, to consider whether there are town centre priority projects where this committee may wish to align support or match fund. And third, to provide, ideally me, with a clear steer on the types of projects and principles that members would want to see reflected as we move into delivery. What I am proposing, if I may, Chair, which is not in this report, is that committee members may want to take this away and have a reflect on it. And I'm really happy to take thoughts and ideas back from committee members, ideally by the 22nd of June, which is a week on Monday. That will give me time to review proposals from committee members to make sure that they're compliant with the funding, make sure they can be delivered in the timescale. And then I'll be really happy to bring back what I consider a really good recommendation for projects back to next BTAC meeting in July. So we are moving at pace, but I think it gives us time to look at this funding pot alongside potential funding that committee may want to make, but also for me just to do a sense check on the Pride in Place main fund that Claire talked about to make sure that we are not duplicating and to make sure that we are using the right spend for the right project. So I'm happy to take questions, Chair.
Yeah, and check, I'm sure questions and probably ideas as well, and thoughts probably.
Yeah, all ideas on an email or a phone call. We're moving at pace, so really happy to have conversations next week with any committee members as well.
Yeah, but if people have got any few ideas, they can mention the ideas tonight as well as send them to you before the 22nd of June. Right, are there any questions? Councillor Gilbert.
Just in relation to that, I was going to propose that we maybe consider something for the work programme around the red phone boxes in the town centre. Because, I mean, they are an eyesore. I walked past one of them yesterday and the bit at the top that says telephone has been pushed inside. They're looking very, very dilapidated, and they do bring the town centre down, particularly those that are outside the old post office, which is now being renovated. And I just wonder whether this committee might like to consider some project involving those phone boxes. We now have a dedicated team of trusted volunteers working in the town centre, and they could actually be responsible for maintaining them once we've actually got them back up to some sort of decent specification. So it's just a thought, really.
Any other questions or any ideas for Maria? Councillor Dorian.
So that, Maria, thank you. That last point you made is perhaps the most salient one for me. I do have quite a lot of questions for you and the portfolio holder, though, is how to avoid duplication, because after the input from the chair of the neighbourhood board, I feel we're already in the realm of duplication, because she quite clearly stated that an extensive consultation exercise has been undertaken, that the themes have been identified. They'd already established that, you know, there was duplication even within the applications they've received. So now I just wonder how best this committee can move forward in the light of the fact that another committee is already doing very similar work, because she also spoke of quick wins, which is exactly what this fund is trying to achieve. So I'm not entirely sure how we square the circle with this one, because anything we put our minds to and put effort into might have already been done, and that's what I'm trying to avoid. Could you speak on that, please, Maria? Thank you.
Yeah, I can, Councillor Dorian. Thank you for your question, because it's really important, and it's a very tricky process because we've got two different governance models for the funding that we're talking about tonight. This is very much a decision for us as a local authority. This funding has been vested with us, whereas the other, I'd say 20 million, but there's 6 million currently with the Pride in Place board. And we are the luxury of having the money, but also there is that challenge that we're moving at pace. The main town centre Pride in Place funding pot, the 6 million of the 20, does have some revenue funding. This pot is purely capital. So I think there's an element of project suggestions from this committee. If I'm able to review them, I have sight of the projects in the Pride in Place world. Sorry, different names, same names. I will have sight of these projects, and then the ask coming from committee. And I think it's almost for me to then bring those recommendations back for us to have that really rich discussion around, do we feel the best use of the revenue from the main board, the capital from the main board, or capital from this project, and also revenue potentially from this committee, so that we really do get the best value for the residents of Boston, which is absolutely what you're asking. It's how do we make sure that we're not duplicating it? It's a big ask. I'm going to do my very best, and I think the more heads around it, the better. But yeah, we've absolutely got to spend the right money in the right place. The main the £6 million has the luxury of 4 years as well. We only have a year for this, so some things will naturally fit into their funding. Some will naturally fit into this, and for some there might be an element of this capital with BTAC committee's revenue funding. So I fully intend to bring back a transparent list of projects to the committee next month, and then I think it's for that discussion around what levels of match do we feel, which projects should be prioritised, and which satisfy this criteria and also the ambitions of this committee. So I can't answer yet, because until I hear all the ideas from committee, and then I think then I'll start to put almost the jigsaw pieces together, if that's a good analogy to use.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a very good analysis, and I'm pleased to know that you've got oversight over both pots of funding. So if I could continue, please, with my questions. So you mentioned there well, this is really for the portfolio holder around the governance and decision making. The report proposes that a member panels are set up, but there's no information around the membership, the decision-making powers, the transparency arrangements, or how any conflicts of interest be managed. So who do you propose sits on the member panel? How will those appointments be made? And what safeguards are you going to put in place to ensure that decisions made are transparent, they're politically balanced and free from conflict of interest? Thank you.
Well, I'm not involved in the panel. The panel is chaired by the leader of the council, Councillor Broughton, and the panel consists of other councillors. I can only really refer back to the point that was made by Mrs. Cotton that she ultimately has governance oversight of the whole process. So therefore, she's the sort of the last word in whether or not the decisions that are made meet the requirements of this council. So it's, I guess, you know, Mrs. Cotton's role to ensure that that the due diligence and every other aspect of our regulations are complied with.
Oh, thank you for that. So the member panel's already established then, you're saying. So who's on that member panel?
I'm not sure because I have various other responsibilities. It was decided, I think quite rightly, because I'm obviously responsible for the town centre itself as portfolio holder, that I shouldn't sit on this because it gives far too much weight to the town centre. And I think it's important that the parishes, who are also fall within the scope of this impact funding, have a fair crack of the whip. But my understanding is that it was the leader of the council and a number of other councillors would be appointed to sit with the leader of the council to act as the sort of the first determining body in respect of this finance. But I don't actually know who they are.
So I think that's a really important point, that and I would ask that question go forward then, please, to find out who is on the panel. Well, everything that I just asked, and what safeguards were put in place to make sure it's politically balanced and free from conflicts of interest, because already it's definitely not transparent, and that's not a good thing.
Well, Maria wants to come in on that question, so Maria, you carry on.
Thanks through you, Chair. So, Councillor Doran, there is a member panel. It's a cross-party member panel. I'm afraid I can't give you the members' names. I'm still learning all the new members, as you know, I've been fairly new. But I'm really happy to share that with you. The prospectus pack has been launched this week, but I'll get you those names if I may, Chair. I can share those with Councillor Doran. And the timeline of that as well. I can share that. It's been managed by our funding team with Saul. So he's been managing our UK SPF funding. So without wanting to speak on behalf of officer colleagues that are not in the room, I think they've delivered some really great funding over the last few years. So I'll bow to their experience, but I'll make sure you've got an answer if that's okay.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm not entirely sure that we've got the right person around the table yet again, because the report's in your name, Councillor Gilbert, but yet it doesn't seem that you're going to be able to answer my questions, but I'll have a go anyway. So a major theme of the report is around match funding. And I was wondering how you're going to ensure that those organisations that are less able to attract financial contributions, you'll avoid disadvantaging them, because it's very important that this funding is applied to all our communities, not just those that are able to raise funds willy-nilly.
I think the aim of the process for applying for the funding is made as straightforward as possible to encourage as many people as possible to apply for the funding. So I mean, I think if you have a proposal from a parish or a small group and you'd like the money, you can apply for it. And my honest belief is you'll be given a very fair hearing in respect of whether or not your group meets the criteria and therefore is eligible for the funding.
That's really reassuring to know. Thank you for that. So I appreciate it. On to KPIs, really. What specific performance indicators will be used to determine whether the programme has successfully improved community pride, footfall, perceptions of safety, etc., everything that Claire talked about earlier, and what baseline data are you currently working from to ensure that you hit those KPIs? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Dorian. We've got quarterly reporting back to MHCLG, and depending on the types of projects chosen, it ranges from the number of sort of square metre of commercial space or public space brought back into use. So I'm really, again, feels like I'm going to share it afterwards, but there's a whole raft of formal KPIs on this programme, which I'm happy to share, and we will be reporting quarterly on those throughout the year as well.
Again, that's reassuring to know. Thank you very much. I'll leave it there for now, Chair. Your body language is giving you away.
My body language is fine, thank you very much. Right, Councillor Gooch.
Thank you, Chair. A very quick question, really. You mentioned about revenue. So is there any plans for that, from where we are getting that one?
Thank you, Councillor Gosh. So I think that's the ask to BTAC, really. So there's a request to discuss this with committee members to see whether any of the funding that BTAC has discretion over, they would like to match fund any of the projects. So as well as suggesting projects through to this fund, it'd be really helpful to understand whether there is options to use BTAC funding to match fund, and your revenue funding would work really well with some of the capital schemes that might need a little bit of revenue to bring forward the capital. So that is the ask of committee members, really, to consider proposals when I bring them back to next meeting. And I will also bring forward potential asks that committee might want to consider. So these are joint funded projects then.
Thank you. Yeah.
Acts you spoke about, Marie, can you make sure all the committee get a copy so that everybody's got the same information? Is that
Absolutely.
okay?
I'm happy to circulate them directly via our colleagues, and rather than wait for the minutes, because I think time is critical. So I'm sure colleagues will make sure it goes out very promptly.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any more questions, or Councillor Izon?
Just a small little point. Why was both of them Pride in place? I mean, isn't it possible to slightly change that name, maybe Boston Pride in Place or something, so that when the two are talked about, there is a difference between them?
Yeah, we're not the only town that is wrestling with this at the moment. For anybody that's been involved in this journey, not necessarily in Boston, but for as long as I have, it started off as you'll know, it was a long-term plan for towns, and then it was plan for neighbourhoods, and then it was Pride in Place. I think this is sort of from the same stable. So Impact Fund is for those towns that need to have some quicker wins and maybe have some direct influence on some of the funding to local authority. But I'm not sure it's an our gift to change the name, with some quite strict guidance on the branding from our colleagues at government. But yes, it's one that we wrestle with. So I have all the sympathies, and the same as the towns that have got this.
Right, are there any more questions before we move on? Councillor Ghosh.
I'm assuming, as it's a summary, you mentioned the proposed program structure. So it's really in a very initial stage. It's a planning stage. So we don't know yet who is going to apply for and all those things. So as asked, KPIs and all those things comes later on, and it will definitely gets changed. Am I right?
Yeah, and I think it's just worth the distinction between the two elements. So the grant funding is now launched, and people can already apply for that, and the timetable's in the pack. The 700,000 for the high streets and town centres is what we're discussing, where we currently have almost a blank slate on how we choose to spend that. And again, rather than just work in the silos and say, well, let's invest in the aviary in the park, you know, is there a way to sort of match all that funding and maximise projects over 1, 2 and 3 years? So yeah, the KPIs will vary on all elements, and wherever we're using match from the main Pride in Place, we will also have their KPIs and outputs to be considered as well.
Yeah, that's what I want to mention is KPIs. Even if you tell us now about KPIs, it's going to be very generic. It's not specific. So you have not reached that stage of implementation, and obviously getting to know those KPIs is still a wrong information, because it's going to be case specific, and in general, in totality, then it's better to know that. Thank you.
Agree.
Councillor Dorian.
Thank you. Maria, on page 13, you mentioned staffing and that the contingency fund of 50,000 will be used to buy additional time and expertise. Could you talk to us a little bit more about that, please? What do you anticipate doing with that funding, and how do you see this split going forward? Thank you.
Yeah, it's probably too early to determine how that would be spent, but for prudency, what I wanted to do was make sure there was some budget held back, whether that is for the additional resource that we need from colleagues in legal or finance to be able to support this. But also if we needed to do, if we needed to seek any external legal advice. So rather than us as a council bear the cost of this funding, there's a real sense of just allocating a small amount for that. It would be my intention as we get towards the end of this programme, if that hasn't been used, that is then recirculated into the projects, either through the grant applications or into some of the projects. And there's also an element of, I've got finance colleagues at the side of me, we know that costs are going up as well. So even in this 12 months, we might actually award one of our parishes or one of our community groups project, and it could slightly creep up. So I think it's unknown yet. It will go back into the pot if it's not used, but I think it's just about being prudent and making sure there's a marker there for anything unexpected.
You're very wise. Thank you, Maria. And just one last point. I didn't know your applications had gone live. I'm a bit surprised given the report's only come now. But having said that, based on what Councillor Gilbert said tonight and the fact that more disadvantaged groups will not be held back by the fact that they can't raise match funding, I would really like that to be highlighted when you advertise the programme, because it's those poorer communities that we really should be reaching out to help as much as we can. Thank you.
No, I completely agree. And I think there's going to be a full member briefing on it as well, but I'll check that when I check the pack. But I think what's really important is the team are very happy to work with applicants as part of the process. So people don't be deterred by the match funding requirements, if at all, but also don't be deterred by the bureaucracy. It's going to be an easy application process, and we will handhold groups. We really want people to reach out to us and secure this funding across the borough.
Councillor Austin.
I'm going to make a very trivial point, or it will seem so to a lot of you. I applaud the fact that when you're, for instance, Maria, turning and talking to someone over there, but it does mean as a result you're not talking into your microphone. So some of those who are audibly challenged miss what you say, and perhaps that could be taken into account by all of you, please. Okay.
Thank you. I think we noted that. Thank you very much. Any other questions? No? Right. Thank you for the recommendation, which is contained within the report and invites the committee to consider its specific priorities and resources. As a result, I would invite the committee to be specific about the priorities and resources that it wishes to take forward for potential inclusion in the Pride in Place Impact Fund. So it's all been noted. Thank you very much. And Maria wants all that information from us all by June the 22nd, ideally. So your thoughts, your ideas, and I'm sure you'll be talking to other people in your wards about what sort of things you want to see and do, and all the suggestions. You've got to Maria's email address. Make sure she gets all the details, preferably before the 22nd. Thank you, Maria, for your report. That's very kind of you. Yeah, you can. Yeah, by all means, you disappear. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Right, we're going to item 3 now, which is the draft outturn financial position on pages 17. This starts the agenda pack. I'll ask the Head of Finance Delivery, Nicola Hayes, to present the report, please. Nicola, over to you.
Good evening, and thank you, Chairman. This report starts on page 21 of your agenda pack and details the draft outturn position for 25-26, covering the period 1st of April 2025 to 31st of March 2026. Table 1 summarises the service areas and shows an underspend of £104,153. I will now take you through the detail behind this figure, which is set out in the following tables. Starting on page 23, Table 3 sets out the position for open spaces and play areas, which is reporting a small underspend of £1,332. This has mainly arisen from underspends in ground maintenance and from the repairs and maintenance budget that has not been required. These savings are partially offset by costs relating to the maintenance of new play equipment, along with additional employee costs resulting from the transfer of roles from other services. Following on, Table 4 shows an underspend for allotments totaling £275, relating to no supplies and service spend and slightly higher rental income than budgeted, offset by a small increase in support service recharges. Table 5 shows an underspend of £43,455, mainly driven by lower ground maintenance costs, gate locking service savings, and higher premises costs for resurfacing works, gate repairs and maintenance. Moving on to page 26. Table 6 shows an overspend of £12,963 in relation to public conveniences. During the year, there were multiple toilet blocks vandalised, necessitating the replacement of damaged doors. This damage has also led to a shortfall in income, which has been partly offset by small underspends across the service. Table 7 shows an underspend of £73,179, of which £52,535 relates to employee costs as a result of a service review that was reported at Q3. Other underspends are included within supplies and services relating to the delivery of events. Table 8 shows an underspend of £12,086, mainly driven by lower vehicle costs, no spend on equipment purchases, and lower spend on purchase and provisions relating to bin purchases. And finally, Table 9 on page 29 shows savings of £21,820, primarily relating to the street cleaning service review, which has been partly offset against additional support service recharges. Taking all of this into consideration, the draft outturn shows an underspend of £104,153. If I could please take you back towards the beginning of the report on page 22. Table 2 shows the reserve balance. The reserve balance as of the 1st of April 25 was £293,825. Following the in-year drawdown and the draft outturn underspend into reserve, this results in a balance of £396,788. Taking into account the ring-fence balances of the small grants and minimum reserve balance required, this results in an available balance of £324,863. It is important to note, as of the 1st of April 2026, that available balance will reduce by a further £30,000 due to the minimum reserve balance increasing as approved at budget setting for 26-27. With that in mind, the available balance will be £294,863 from the 1st of April. Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions.
Right, thank you very much for that, Nicola. Anybody want to ask any questions, please? Councillor Izard.
I may as well go then. There seems to be an awful lot of saving in ground maintenance throughout this report. Does that mean that we've cut back on ground maintenance? In which case, why haven't we gone further afield and done other areas? If we had money in the budget, it seems silly to pump it back into reserves rather than improve areas we could do with maintenance in that sense.
Thank you, Chairman. So similar to the other budgets, the budget was set prior to a review that we've done this year. So budget setting takes place in the January before the financial year starts. So at that point, that service review had not yet taken place. So following that review in 25-26, it was identified the costs were not attributable to BTAC, and those appropriate costs have now been included in the draft outturn. So no services have been cut back. It's going through a periodic cycle of reviewing what those costs are. Are they still appropriate? Service delivery does change, and it is important that we go through the cycle to make sure we are charging the right charges from the council to BTAC, and that is what's happened during 25-26. If you remember, as part of the 24-25 process, there was a number of other areas where these recharges were reviewed. So we're going through that periodic cycle to do that review, which is why you'll see a significant underspend in the 25-26 draft position.
Thank you for that. Go on to page 24. So the budget for development, can you explain a little bit more behind the budget and why it wasn't used?
So the costs were not required by the service in this year, but it's a provision for allotments to utilise as and when required. It's again about maintaining the allotments themselves. So when there is a need to do that, that provision is already there to be utilised.
Basically, development really is just making good the allotments if they need to. Maybe a different terminology in the next report. Going on to page 26 then. And my old one, the cash collection service. How much cash did we actually collect it in compared to how much it cost us to collect it?
I don't have that exact figure to hand, but I can take that away and come back to you on that and share that out if that's okay.
Would be good because I don't know, we are spending more than what we're actually bringing in. And lastly, just on page 29, where is it? Oh, again, street cleaning. I take it your answer is going to be the same as for ground maintenance. The fact that we have money left in the budget, but we don't use up money to improve street cleaning in other areas. We just put it back in our reserves.
Yeah, so this is a recharge cost to BTAC for that service. So I believe a briefing note was circulated prior to this meeting regarding the full street cleaning review. And again, exactly the same as the ground maintenance. As part of 25-26, we've done that review to understand what charges are attributable to BTAC.
Ask a question, Nicola. You know the toilets that where there's an overspend. I think was it 12 grand? You said overspend. If I remember rightly, there's been quite a lot of issues with the toilets, with vandalism and issues regarding problems in there. And obviously, the overspend must be repairing everything all the time. I don't know if you'd have the answer to this, or whether Phil might know. What we're doing about the situation regarding improving the toilets of anti-vandalism proof. I don't know whether you've got anything on that you could report on.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, the things like CCTV were improved in the area to try and make sure we have better vision. You know, if someone goes in, the door was reinforced, I think, as well. I'm not aware of any further problems at the moment, and I know the police were quite active in dealing with an individual, I think, who was causing some of the damage.
Would it be possible for us to get any reports from the guys who look after that, you know, all the damage and that's going on, just so we can keep abreast of it? Is that possible at all to get an update on that?
We'll certainly take it back to the service, yes.
Yeah. Councillor Noble.
Thank you. Yes, regarding the toilets, I just want to know, are they checked on a daily basis? I'd be interested to know, so you could assess, you know, the level of vandalism and how often it occurs. And just secondly, I just think it's a very well produced report. It's so easy to read. I don't think there's anything very contentious in there, and I think it's quite good. We've got a healthy reserve balance, because who knows what demands may be placed upon our funds in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you. Thank you. Do you know anything on that question?
Sorry, could you just repeat the last bit of that question? Sorry,
it was about the toilets, and specifically, and how they check daily to ascertain that.
Yeah, the toilets are checked a number of times each day. They have a team that goes through, keeps them clean, tidy, and checks, which is why we know when the vandalism occurs.
Okay, thank you for that reassurance.
Councillor Woodliff.
Thank you, Chairman. I did just wonder about the maintenance project for the park. I know when I walked through the other day that there's quite a few holes in the tarmac and so on. In some places, I noticed we spent a bit more money on this year. It was we spent 11,000 as opposed to 5,000. You say? Are there any plans afoot to perhaps improve the pathways? And so it says here cost associated with surfacing works. I suspect there's more than a few resurfacing works needed in that park. Any plans on that? And if so, any costings associated with it, please?
Interestingly, the next item will go through a number of issues, including this particular pathway. So there is a report that we'll go through shortly, and we can discuss that a bit more.
Anyway.
Thank you. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Chairman. The one toilet block or such like is not referred to at all, and that is the one on the Garfitts Lane playing field. And that is surely under, well, the playing fields are under BTAC, but surely that toilet block is as well.
No, in Garfitts Lane, only the playground is under BTAC. The rest of it is under the borough. So the toilet block, or it's actually change room block, which I believe is it has a lease in place with a club, and the playing field comes under the borough.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from Councillor Izard?
Just a quick one. There's page 29. We've made a saving on speed indicator device service not carried out for 2025-26. Do we use a speed indicator device at all?
Sorry, could you elaborate on your question, please?
Sorry, yeah. So we made a saving of £1,050 on the speed indicator device service not carried out for 2025-26. Do we have a speed indicator, and when was it used in Boston area, BTAC area?
I'm going to ask Paul to come in because he has some knowledge of this. So I don't think Nicola would know where. I don't think she stands out underneath these signs watching them all day. So I'm going to ask Paul to come in.
Just to assist the committee, about 9 months ago, Councillor Gleeson asked me to make some inquiries about the location of these devices, their availability, whether people were trained to use them and so on. And I think the answer was that they are available, but nobody is trained to use them. And that there was no budget for training at the moment. So therefore the council or BTAC owns the assets, but they're not deployed because there's no money to or budget to train somebody after the last person retired to use them.
Well, with all the surplus we've got, we ought to put some money in for training then, so this facility can be used. Otherwise, it seems odd. We've got this equipment sitting there in a box, not being used, and nobody knows how to use it. I think that needs raising on there. I think, would you committee be interested in looking at some training for people to use this facility? And perhaps on the surplus that we have talked about this evening, we could put some of that money for the training, and then we could actually get it into use. Is that okay? Everybody happy with that? Good. All right. Well, we'll look at that. Then we'll talk about budget and then we'll talk about some training. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from anybody else? Councillor Noble.
Quickly on that, are we talking about the flashing signs, or are we talking about handheld devices that members of the public who are trained can use? Because those signs indicating speed, I think, are very effective, and they do make motorists think and slow down.
Is it the handheld sign we're talking about? I think it is, isn't it, the handheld sign? It's a flashing light one.
It's a flashing, yeah. It's just the fact that you have to charge it, move it.
Yeah, but, sorry, just because, you know, outside of Boston, just outside, you know, in places like Sibsey, they are very useful to encourage motorists to slow down.
Have we identified any areas that need these flashing signs?
I believe they are up. The mounting plates are up on certain places around the town.
I think that needs looking into. Councillor.
These flashing signs do appear in parts of the BTAC area. There are two on the high street that are fixed to lampposts. I think this is a mobile system which can be deployed in a similar way to the way that parishes deploy them. So I guess it was to give us a level playing field with the parishes. But unfortunately, we haven't had an opportunity yet to either train someone to establish it or to, I guess, I don't know, we have to stay with it, do you? No, just erect it and move on. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Well, it's still so sad that you've got a piece of equipment that is not being used, and basically it just wants somebody to know how to install it or erect it or whatever the terminology is, so that it can be used. But then you would decide what areas it may want to go to. So that's sort of two areas that we need to look into. What can we move from place to place? Yes. I think that's a separate issue. I'm going to ask you, Phil, to look at that regarding budget and talk to Nicola, and then come back and come up with some ideas. And about how many we got of these pieces of flashing things? Just one. Okay, and then we can identify where they can go, or it can go. All right. Right, any more questions for Nicola on finance rather than traffic lights and flashing lights? No, we haven't. Right, so thank you. So thank you. I've got my question wrong here. Right, so all members are agreed then, are we? Oh, recommendation, apologies. Right, the committee is asked to note that the draft outturn position of 104,153 underspend for 25-26 is detailed in Appendix A, Table 1, and note the reserve balance to the 31st of March. Everybody happy with that? Agreed, thank you. So, all agreed. Thank you very much, Nicola. If you get some spare time, can you go and learn how to put traffic signs up? Thank you. Right, so we go on to now item 4, which is the BTAC play area improvement aspirations, page 31. And I'm going to ask Carl to present the report for us. Welcome, Carl. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, hi, good evening, all. Such talented speakers. I fear the quality is about to fall off a cliff now that it's my turn. I'm a new face to most of you. Of course. How about now? Great, I can hear my own voice now. Yeah, I'm probably a new face to many of you. I only joined the partnership October last year, and maybe underestimated the scale of the 3 councils combined. So whilst I can't call myself new, I'm still finding my way. So please do forgive my debut if it doesn't hit the mark first time. Everything okay? Oh, sorry. Yeah, no problem. No problem. I'm not actually working to the document that you have. It's not been circulated to me, but I have got what I submit to the report. So that's wonderful. Thank you. If I can just or just kind of preface, if that's okay, if I can be indulged. It was only my second week in the role. Phil Perry, sitting over there, actually took me for a tour around Central Park. It was the first park I visited in the partnership, and it was impressed upon me very immediately that BTAC are a very aspirational committee in terms of quality of parks and development and improvement of green spaces. It was even more encouraging very quickly on that to be involved in regular meetings with many elected members and stakeholders to discuss how we aspirationally achieve a green flag for Central Park. And it was remarkable to turn things around and put ourselves into a position where we felt bringing a judge into the park was warranted. And just for a little bit of context, there are 30,000 parks in the UK. If you remove London, only 1,500 of those have a green flag status. And if you move to parks outside of cities, only 500 in the UK have a green flag. So I do hope, and I cross all my fingers, that Central Park and BTAC can boast a green flag in the very, very immediate future. I just also wanted to say, as the report refers to park investment and park development, you can't really consider that without just a little bit of national context. And that context, and I don't mean this to come over negative, it's very real data that the national picture over the last 10 years, parks nationally have occurred a range of 30 to 40% in real terms funding reduction. That's exacerbated further that costs of materials, equipment and contractor costs have increased by a range of 55% to 60% in the same ensuing period. It's just to highlight and demonstrate that park development, maintenance and management has become a fundamental challenge that's not just going to be local to here, but it very much sits within a national fold and within a national context. There are other factors as well, that the lead agency over parks over this period of time, ROSPA, they've instituted and initiated a much more robust set of governance in terms of how we keep parks safe, how often we inspect those, and what standards should actually be. But moving on just a touch here, when it comes to park development, when it comes to park improvement, it's really important at the preface at the start of that you answer the question, what are you wanting to achieve in developing parks? Do we want to increase toddler play in the parks? Do we want to increase junior play or teen activity in the park? Do we want safer spaces for girls? Do we want to work towards cleaner air? Do we want to increase inclusivity? That's creating parks and open spaces which are available for all. Another interesting statistic is only 1% of UK parks can consider themselves fully inclusive. That means that park is accessible for all. Only 10% of parks in the UK can say that they are reasonably accessible for all. And most parks or most park development in the UK typically favours components and features that favour boys. Over the last 10 years, most park development has been about sports, multi-use games arenas and sports provision. That is a component that males gather to. There's a lot of research out now in terms of developing parks for female and girl inclusion. And that is, believe it or not, the old favourites, the basics, which are swings, climbing frames, any form of activity that encourages interaction, conversation, and shared and joint play. That's my prefix. I'll move into the information that I put together into the report. And the first part that we've drawn reference to is, I think I pronounce this wrong every time, Phil. I say Inglau, I think you say Inglau. So that was wrong twice. Right, okay. Yes, so thank you, Chair. So a large park, 17,000 square metres. It includes multi-activity unit, a basketball court. However, the current layout positions the key features at the far end of the site, reducing accessibility and limiting casual use. The recommended improvements, if to be considered, would be to relocate future play provision closer to the main access points to improve accessibility, visibility and user safety, introduce football goals or informal play features to activate underused open areas, and consider a phased reconfiguration to enhance overall layout inclusivity and usage. There's quite a lot in there. The only real tangible would be the addition of football goals. They're typically £2,500 per goal. They have gone up exceedingly, the inflation against this has gone up monumentally because it's regulated. There was unfortunately a very tragic death up in the north, which was due to a bad installation. So the installation of goalposts is now very much regulated. Moving on to Woodville Row Play Park, a small park, 2,500 square metres. A compact neighbourhood play space with a good range of toddler equipment and some outdoor fitness provision. The site benefits from an attractive green backdrop and mature boundary planting. However, the absence of formal pathways limits accessibility for wheelchair users and pushchairs, or those with
Chairman,
reduced.
could I, Carl, we've had this for 5 days. We've all read it. You don't need to read every single word to us. With respect, it's a good report, but
Thank you.
it would save us a lot of time and heartache. And just the one you're on is Woodville Road, I believe, not Woodville Road.
Sorry.
Thank you.
My newness coming to the fore again. Okay, no, thank you for that. So recommended proposals or things to consider would be the standard Geotex crushed compacted stone and edging. traditionally £35 to £70 per square metre. Sensory panels designed at enhancing play provision for those with a sensory impairment and moving towards a more inclusive space that occurs features for those with any level of disability, and seating, additional seating. That ranges between £320 to £550 per item, depending on whether you go for a hardwood or composite material. Broadfield Lane, please tell me I've said that one correctly.
Yeah, if you just give us the roughly idea of the cost of what you think. We've read the report, we've got the recommendations here and what improvements and so forth. Just give us the actual figures for each of the actual parks. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine, but it's contingent on what's wanted and what's actually desired.
Okay, well, I'll leave it with you to be as brief as you can.
Right. Okay. So, Broadfield Lane, expanding play provision or wheelchair accessibility equipment. Typical features for wheelchair-friendly equipment, as a roundabout as an example, is £12,000 to £15,000 per item. Imaginative play-themed elements range between £600 to £1,500 per unit. So in terms of Broadfield Lane, if the desire is to improve inclusivity, which is a weakness in this particular space, you'll be seeking to allocate in the area of £20,000 to convert this park into what will be considered a reasonably accessible space. St John's Road. Our proposals for St John's Road is no additions, but the upgrading of existing equipment. There's a lot of equipment in this park which is reaching end of life, end of age. I have got a report on that one separately. I won't go through it, but we've anticipated costs of between £5,500 and £6,000 to bring back existing features up to a current and modern standard that will bring about another 10 years guarantee against those particular provisions of play. Burgess Pit, the proposal within that is more environmental. It's increased tree planting, it's nectar-rich native meadow planting, and additional seating and other features to encourage wildlife. Estimated costs within this territory are no more than £5,000. Shelton's Field, we've identified this park and space as not particularly friendly for female users, and we've proposed the installation of a five-way swing. Five-way swings are play features which encourage face-to-face swinging. The cost of installation of a five-way swing is £8,500 to £9,000. That's based on costs from the beginning of the year. I don't know if they've gone up or inflated at any point in between that. Central Park, the obvious weakness within the park is the infrastructural pathways, which have already been alluded to this evening. The degradation, the disrepair of those parks is in the extreme. A cost of a full resurface to these parks at the lowest possible end is £200,000. These need completely planing off, grading down, a complete overlay and pin curb edging to ensure that whatever resurfacing is put into this particular park comes with a minimum 15-year guarantee. It is inordinately high expense. The park is, in terms of its pathways, occurring lots of damage due to root heave from the trees and lots of deteriorating areas through the age of the existing tarmac. £200,000 is the low ball figure for that work. We have actually had quotations, so we are working with very fresh financial details. That figure will rise up to £260,000 depending on the style and the nature of the finish, whether we want practical and functional or practical, functional, also aesthetical. If the park was ever to be utilised for successful park runs or to be encouraged for people to utilise for physical health, for walking, etc., this would be a very, very sound investment. Away from the actual pathways, the park has benefited substantial investment over previous years, which has put it into the position of a very, very well stocked and a very, very inclusive park. And there is one additional element within the park which I'd like to bring to the room. I do have a small underspend on a grant fund. You may have noticed that there's been £50,000 worth of horticultural development in the park, including a wheelchair-friendly pathway through the nature space. We do have scope and provision to install or to fit a mini cycle proficiency scheme on the tarmacked area towards the multi-use games arena. That is colourful in nature. I can't share my screen, but it's essentially thermoplastics imprinted onto the ground, and it's very, very popular with parents with toddlers and teaching bike safety. Typical cost is £9,500 for that. I do actually have that in separate finance if the committee support the furtherance of that particular development. And that is me.
Right, thank you very much there, Carl. We'll go open for questions then. So, Councillor Noble.
Chair, it's a question about, this is page 32. We understand that Ingelo Avenue Play Park, there's going to be a separate report presented to this committee on 23rd July. We cross-reference to page 37. It tells us the improvements there. I just wondered why we're having a particular report on that part, because I think historically there were some very contentious proposals about 4 years ago to get rid of this green space, which I thought was absolutely outrageous. What we need is more play parks, not less. The more we get children outside playing, the less in front of their screens at home, the better.
Yeah.
Yeah, go. Okay.
Yeah, we agreed that Ingelo Avenue was going to be a separate report in the work programme last year, and we put it in because this is one that is not currently a BTAC site, but it's one that BTAC were looking to potentially take on. So we're looking at another report coming at the next meeting, which Carl will be putting together with the cost to BTAC to take that maintenance element on, and it will also include the goalposts, which were discussed initially as well.
Councillor Ghosh.
Thanks, Chair. There are two range I want to ask. First is the report itself. I've read the report, and the second is the implementation part. So the first thing is, I'm assuming, and I think every project should have that information of the total approximate cost, which is not here. Okay. You did mention the Central Park 157 to 210,000. That's a range. But again, you said 260,000. I heard that. Then that range should be 157 till 260,000. It should be min and max. That will give a broader picture how that cost. That's just a suggestion. The third point I want to mention that in page 40 you did mention there's a cost of 2015 and approx cost today. To be honest, for me, I really don't need to know how much it cost in 2015. I want to know how much it costs today. That's not going to be, we are going to spend that money. So that's just what I noticed. I just informed you, just a suggestion. One question regarding the implementation side. Now, in the summary, you mentioned that enabling officers to seek funding opportunities. Now, can Agenda 4 apply funds from Agenda 2? Which is, because in Agenda 2, Pride in Place impact grants, you did mention their improved public spaces for 750,000. And if you see in the second one, Borough High Street and Town Centre revitalization, 700,000, you did mention there in the report is natural and built environment. So technically, whatever in this report, Agenda 4, we can actually, and officers can actually apply fund from here. What's your thought on that?
Yes, I agree entirely. So The Pride in Place Impact Fund absolutely will categorically be accessed or will be applied into by our services to supplement or support or add to any funding provision that's available to broaden the scope of parks development. So I didn't want to go into it in too much detail, not knowing what was permissible to say or otherwise. But I've already been in conversation with reference to the Pride in Place Impact Fund and how we can access that as an additional source of funding to go further with any parks development within the BTAC area.
Okay, thank you.
Right, Councillor Dorian.
Thank you. Is it Carl?
It is, yeah.
Oh,
Hi.
you've not met Carl. Thank you
Hi.
for your report.
Mm.
I agree with the comments made previously. I found it quite difficult to follow. There's a lot of information here. You've clearly done a lot of work, and I really do appreciate that, including the graphics that you've included. But it would have been much better to tie everything neatly in together with the costs, the final costs, or the approximate final costs with each park area. I see the report was signed off by the portfolio holder. Again, they're not here this evening to speak to it or to speak to why they didn't think that was appropriate. So moving on, Cal, what is it you need from this committee tonight? Is this a bit of a pick and mix situation? Is it a beauty parade? Do you want us to itemise the items that we like to see come forward in order, which we want first, which we want last, and so on and so forth? Is that what you're asking the committee to do now?
Yes, so thank you for that feedback. We'll call this an average debut. I'm finding my way, and this is my first time, obviously, reporting into the committee, and I take all of those points and thank you for that. What I would say is, in all my career in managing parks, I find it quite uncomfortable as an individual to be the voice of this is how a park should be improved. I like to influence and contribute to that process, but to submit a report saying you should do this, you should do this, and you should do that, I'm quite uncomfortable. I prefer it when I'm presented with a theme, an aspiration, and a desire in terms of what you want your parks to be, what you want them to achieve, and what you want them to look like. In advance of producing that, I didn't have any of that data to work with. So I do appreciate that there's a level of generalism in there, but I just didn't want to steer it as I thought was best, because it's not about what I think is best, if that makes sense.
Well, thank you for that, Carl, but please take comfort. You have done extremely well tonight, especially if you're so new to it. So well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Woodliff.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, thank you, Carl, for a very interesting report. If you look at the report, which item do you think has high priority in terms of safety? Which item, if we were looking at all of these items, they're all very important, but which item do you think is most important in regards to public safety? Because public safety is very important.
So what I will say to that is the parks are enabled through the budget to be maintained to a very safe standard, which is very, very, very reassuring. We don't have any unsafe parks. It simply would not be permitted. In terms of investing in a park, I'm not going to go through a second report that I've not actually produced to you, but there's a hierarchy of your parks in terms of constituent parts and in terms of investment. Now, the clear hierarchy is Central Park is your flagship park. Moving down that particular order, I'm just going to bring it up now. Broadfield Lane is requiring significant more work than Central Park. I'm not actually in front of the information that I'm hoping to be in front of, but if it would help kind of separately to this, I have produced almost a league of your parks, which breaks things down separately, and where where investment is most chronically needed to kind of raise the bottom standard. I think your point's really, really good. I would always encourage that you take the worst park, the park that's had least investment, and you put that to the top of your list, and then you work on that on a rotational basis. That way, it's a consistent approach. If that makes sense, I can send that through separately. I'm sorry, I'm fishing around for it now, and it's not in front of me. But I did produce a second small report which sets out a park standard and where they all score respectively against the next park.
It's a pity we could have had that tonight. We could have actually gone through that as a committee.
No, I'd sent too much. I'm sorry.
No matter. So, Councillor Woodley, if you want to continue your another question.
Yeah, well, yes, Cham. I'm just thinking about the safety aspect, really. I can understand that every park needs some improvement, but I wonder whether Central Park and its pathway would be high up on that list, because it has the highest footfall, I would say. And I know when I walked through the park the other day, I thought, you know, if I walked through here, I wasn't watching where I'm going. I was going up on the floor. You know, there were quite a few holes and tarmac and so on. So, you know, particularly in that when you come through the main gates, and you go down between the trees, you know, and that's an area I thought that might be a priority. And I noticed that, of course, the cost involved is significant, as you're talking about, you know, £250,000 essentially, aren't we, to fix that?
It's a substantial amount of money, and it would be transformative for that park, just not in terms of its safety or in terms of its appearance, but in terms of its functionality thereafter. I think things like a park run would absolutely thrive in that particular park, but that's not something that we could encourage or promote at the current time. I think it would lend itself better to events. I do think there is probably an element of local residents, stakeholders who might not use the park due to certain areas being unpleasant or unsteady on foot. Not to steer it, I think it would be an exceptional line of investment to deeply consider. But I appreciate the costs there are in the six-figure category range. In terms of least safe parks, sorry, I have found a little bit of data here. Broadfield Lane and Shelton's Field are those which have constituent existing parts that would benefit from replacement. We work on a risk factor score basis. 20 is the highest we go. There's in Shelton's Field, there's 4 pieces of equipment that are currently score risk factor 12. What I would say though, I'm going to give you some numbers now. You've got 502 assets in total covering all of your parks. Only 32 of those items, or 32 of those assets are currently at an amber stage. So that just goes back to the question over safety. We've got no reds in there. The worst we've got is ambers, but the vast majority, by a significant margin, everything is green.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Gilbert.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, it's a shame that this country generally is very naturally depleted, and we live in a sort of an intensively agricultural area where I guess, you know, pesticides and things are used quite intensively. So in some ways, our parks are a sort of a haven for wildlife, and it makes me wonder whether or not there may be an opportunity for us to sort of use some of our areas, some of the larger park areas, to create a kind of meadow space or something like that, where, you know, we can start to encourage the bees, the insects and the birds to sort of return to our town centre, whether that's a possibility. In relation to the Central Park, I actually think we really do need to invest in improving the pavements in that park, because if we're going to be developing the town centre, and I hope we can do this, as somewhere where we convert ex-retail and commercial into residential accommodation, it's a great place for people to jog, and people to, entertain themselves recreationally. So from my perspective, that's a very, very good investment if we can get the funding for it. And there must be other partners out there in relation to health and sport who would be prepared to sort of join with us in match funding some of those aspirations. And the final point is, do we still have a skate park in St John's Park? We used to have years ago. In the past, I always remember that was a very challenging asset because it was often being vandalised. So I just wonder whether we've managed to sort of retain it and maintain it, over the last sort of 10 years since I last had some involvement with it.
Councillor Ghosh.
Thank you, Chair. I actually missed one point. One more information I want to see in the report is out of these many spaces and places you mentioned, I really need to know which one is important. Probably you can color code it red, amber, green, and you can in a tabular format, something like space A ranges min max is this B, C, D, and then you range, like you can mention these are the red ones, absolutely important. We need to do that, then amber and then green. Then it's, if we have some funds to invest, then we know which one we should pick. You understand what I mean? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can circulate that information post meeting as soon as tomorrow, if that's beneficial.
Councillor Dorian.
So if we can move matters on, firstly, I'd like to propose that we accept Carl's recommendation to install, is it these graphics you're indicating on page 41 that you wish to use an underspend for?
Yeah, that would be funded through the underspend of a separate grant for Central Park. Yeah.
Okay, so I would propose that we approve that the use of that underspend for that purpose, and then moving on, if time is on our side, Carl, and I'll take your guidance on this. I would then propose that we defer any decisions on this until we have a package of information from yourself relating to all the points that councils have raised in terms of costings, the red, amber, green, the safety, and the proportion of spend on each of the parks, so that we can be fair to all the residents in the different wards. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. So I would suggest that we do the items that they have with the 50k funding that you've got surplus of the funding as discussed, and then we get your report with more detail, and that's what Councillor Dorian said, and then we're in a better position to decide how we're going to go forward. Everybody happy with that? Do we have a time scale on any of these? Is there anything really urgent that needs to be sorted out or not? So they're all amber, you said, did they?
You're all green.
Green.
Yeah, but for a few, anything that was reds, we've sorted that. We've got a couple of ambers, but I'll circulate that, and you see an amber is not bad. An amber is just drawing your attention to it's over its apex.
Okay, when are we likely to get this information so we can read it before our next meeting? Is it possible to get this out as soon as possible?
Well, in the interest of redeeming myself, I'll make sure you have it no later than Monday next week.
That's very kind of you. Everybody happy with what has been said and agreed? Yeah, okay, well, we'll move that as... Councillor Austin, beg your pardon.
Because my brain doesn't work very well these days. Please, could we actually have a list of which, seeing as we are a committee of the borough, which of the park play areas come under us and which come under the borough, when we are ourselves just a subdivision, if you like, of the borough. And that's why I get confused. Thank you.
We have mapping of all the facilities, which we will share again for you. So we'll send that out. That's not a problem.
Are there any more questions at all on that report? Councillor Izard? Sorry, I thought you put your hand up. Right, so we've agreed then that we'll wait for Carl to submit the breakdown of all the information as requested, and that we will then go from there. Can we make a note that Councillor Doran's leaving the meeting at this time now? Thank you. So we move on. Item 5, the work programme, pages 47. No apologies were given either, or no, isn't it? 47. Right, the final item is the work programme 47. I'm going to ask Phil, the Services Director of Leisure and Local Services, to go through the information for us. Phil, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Members will note that the work programme has been updated, and in addition to looking at the work programme this evening, it is necessary to review the position with the membership of the working groups. The following working groups remain active. The first being the Green Flag Award, the second small grants, and the third is Central Park Security. Chair.
Do you want names for these different groups, Phil, tonight?
It's just that we got the membership of them in the script. It's whether we want to review, update. Check, yeah.
The names of the working group. So we've got the Green Flag. Just say yes if you're still keen to carry on. We've got myself. Yes, I am. Councillor Gilbert. Well, Councillor Dunn is not here. So can we get Paul to ask the question? Councillor Drayton and Councillor Saviak. Lena. I get your name right one day. Safikiene. Are you still keen to be on the? You have. And you need to have a word with Paul Gleeson as well, Councillor Gleeson. Right, so on the small grants, there's myself, Councillor Woodliff. Again, ask Councillor Gleeson. Councillor Izard? Yeah. Councillor Lena? Yep. Councillor Drayton. The working group meetings. Right, so in the case of small grant, the meetings, Central Park Security. That's Councillor Doran and Councillor Gleeson. Does anybody else want to go on that group?
We haven't got any.
Central Park Security. Let Paul have a few words. Go on.
We decided, I think, to keep that working group alive whilst the Green Flag application was pending. So probably at the next meeting you could review, I would suggest, whether you want to disband that working group. But maybe a decision for next month when we know the outcome.
Or put Councillor Drayton on, he'll go on it as well.
Okay.
So at least he'll know we'll be there. Anybody else wants to go on that working group? Or just add your name then to that, Councillor Drayton. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
I mean, we've talked a lot about funding and various other bits. Is there a need for a working group to oversee the funding to make sure that it's being worked on, being completed, the works are being completed, the tasks are being completed for the BTAC area? This is our kind of final push this year, and with both lots of funding, the 6 million and the other impact funding, plus the funding that we may allocate following this report. I'm just wondering whether a separate working group to oversee those kind of areas to make sure that the work is committed and goes through.
Anybody else's thoughts on that?
I agree.
I'm actually in favour of that because I think it will be able to monitor it in much more detail and making sure that I mean, I'm quite happy to go on that group as the chairman.
But we need to be on our toes now, don't we?
And Councillor Marston, that's two. Anybody else want to go on that little working group of finance? Councillor Izard? Yes. And Councillor Drayton. Yeah. There's 4 of us. Everybody happy with that? Good. And we'll keep an eye on it and all, and we'll just make sure that the funding is monitored and what's happening to it, where it's going, and how it's progressing. Is that okay? Right. So, I don't understand what this is. It's just to do with small grants, is it? Timetable of small grants. Okay. So do you want me to read that out?
Yeah, on each of the placements, there's a list from the small grants officer of the forthcoming dates, just so that all the members who are part of that group have full awareness of the dates for the next municipal year. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Have you all got copies of that? So, Councillor Woodliff.
They're actually on the 2nd, because the community government review meets, I think, at the same time, doesn't it? Is that right?
Community governance reviews usually about 5 o'clock, isn't it?
Yeah, was it moved to 5:30 or something? Isn't it? Is that right?
It's
It's 5 o'clock.
It's normally 5 o'clock, and it's over by 6.
Right. Well, that'd be okay.
We can leave it. We can move the community governance review meeting if we absolutely have to make it a little earlier.
Yeah, it's fine by me. Yeah. Mm.
So they're just and those on that small grants, and they're the dates, and they're all on Teams with Maddie here, isn't it? That's right. So we know who's on that working group. There's the dates there, and I think there's a separate leaflet somewhere on all the tables as well with all those dates on as well. So you just need to diary them, everybody. Okay.
And do we know, is the budget the same for this one as it was for last year, or are we increasing it because we've got so much in reserves?
I'll ask Nicola to come on with that one. Thank you.
From memory, it's okay. I'll let you off. It's £12,000 from memory that you have available, and also to note you've got a ring-fenced balance in your reserve of £1,925, which members can utilise if they so wish to. Thank you.
I was so engrossed thinking about you putting that sign up, I forgot your name. The questions on before we close. Can we have larger print or a big pair of glasses for Councillor Austin with thick lenses? Right, Councillor Gilbert.
Yeah, I just wonder how members feel about considering the option of purchasing for probably about £1 a piece the 6 red phone boxes and making them a BTAC asset prior to hopefully the creation of a town council sometime during 2027. We have as I said earlier, a team of volunteers. We have funding available to us. We could apply for funding to maintain them. We could think about creative ways of utilising them, so that they actually maintain their utility, but they actually don't detract from the overall appearance of the town centre, which they currently are doing.
Pilgrim Father's theme or something that relates to the history of the town.
Well, we got 6 of them, so we could do different things with different ones, and maybe something, a little art gallery, maybe a defibrillator, maybe something in Anyway, I just wondered if that could go onto the work programme.
Put it on the work programme, and we can all come up with some ideas of what we're going to stick inside the phone boxes.
Seen them used for lots of different ways in various parts of the country. Some of them are little museums. Yeah, all sorts of interesting things you can do with them, and we've got 6 of them. So we've got but we would have to approach British Telecom and purchase them. But I think they probably ought to give them to us.
Right. Well, let's go on the work programme then. Thank you very much. And Paul's made a note of that. So we've made a note of the working group. It was the membership of the working group. Everybody's happy with that. I don't think there's any more business now. I want to thank you all. Oh, Councillor Woodliff, just before we finish.
Not really BTAC business, but I have to go to Lincoln tomorrow for the police and crime panel. If anybody's got any thoughts about policing matters as such, they want to pass them over to me. The police and crime commissioner will be there. He doesn't like operational questions, but you never know. I might be able to ask one.
He showed us how to fix the thing on the pole.
Andrew Jenkins take it.
Well, yeah, that's a good question. If anybody has any thoughts, you can send them through. You can, email me or whatever. By tomorrow morning, I'll pick them up, and I'm happy to ask them even if I don't get an answer. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. That concludes the business with the committee. The next meeting is on Thursday, the 23rd of July at 6:30. Safe journey home. Thank you very much, and I'm glad to be sitting in this seat again. And thank you very much for your support.
In this one.
Thank you.